Welcome back to Sailing El Jaleo. Last week we were headed down Chesapeake Bay and we made it as far as Jackson Creek, where we struck out for a second time in our attempt to secure fuel and water. But the next day we headed back out into the bay and we made the long run down to Hampton, Virginia. And it was so nice to finally get out of Chesapeake Bay. This fall it was an absolute nightmare. And here again we got stuck at the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel for a few days waiting out high winds. But we did get to shore a couple of times with the pup dog, so that was a good time. And I think that's about as far as we'll make it this week. So I guess we might as well go ahead and get right into it. Grab a drink, climb aboard, and let's get going. At the end of last week's episode, we had just made it to Jackson Creek, and Jackson Creek is a wonderful place. It's a great anchorage. It's very well protected. It's protected from the wind from most directions. Now, you might get a little bit of wind coming off of the bay right at the mouth of Jackson Creek, but that huge sandbar that you saw in the drone video from last week, that protects Jackson Creek from any large waves that might come in off of the bay. And you know, a little bit of wind is okay, as long as you're not bouncing up and down in the waves all night. A little bit of wind keeps Jenny going, and Jenny in turn keeps us going, so we certainly don't begrudge a little bit of wind. And in Jackson Creek is also the Jackson Creek Marina. And last year when I was having my hydro-locking issues, EJ's diesel did hydro-lock twice. So the engine cylinders actually filled up with water, which is not a good situation. And it wasn't until I got down to Jackson Creek when it happened the second time that I actually figured out exactly what was causing it, what was going on. So I did have to order a replacement part to replace on EJ's exhaust system to prevent that from happening. And Jackson Creek Marina was nice enough to allow me to send the part to them, and then I dinghied in to the marina to pick it up. So they were super friendly and a very nice outfit there. And we would have loved to have stayed in Jackson Creek for a couple of more days, especially considering our fuel and water issues that we were having. But, you know, the weather on Sunday was just too perfect. After all of the crap that we've put up with this year in Chesapeake Bay, it was supposed to be a very calm day. And it seemed like it would be a fitting end to our journey down Chesapeake Bay to have an actual calm day. So we decided to take it. As we got closer to Hampton, the wind really died down and the water turned into almost pure glass. It was just a beautiful day. Now, would we have liked a little bit of wind on the beam, maybe 10 knots to give us a little more speed? Sure. You know, it would have been perfect, but this year you just can't beg and choose. You take what you get, and it was actually a very pleasant day. The temperature was nice. You know, it would have been nice if there was a little bit of wind, but, you know, if it's 5 knots or 25 knots, we'll take 5 knots, and that's what we got this day. So it was a good end to our trip down Chesapeake Bay. As we approached Hampton, Virginia, we were super stoked. We were finally going to get out of the bay. The nightmare of this year was going to be over, and it was going to be smooth sailing the rest of the way to Florida. Right? But anyway, as we approached Hampton, we always anchor right next to the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. It's one of 2 bridge tunnels in the area. There are bridges that go from Norfolk to Hampton, and then there's a tunnel that goes underneath the James River. And Norfolk is the largest naval base on the East Coast. I believe it is the U.S.'s largest naval base. I think it might even be the largest naval base in the world, but it's very large. It's the home of the U.S. Eastern Fleet. And out in the bay, where the bay goes out into the ocean, there's a long bridge that goes from, I believe it would it be Maryland? I think it's Maryland over to Virginia. And that also has a tunnel. And the reason why they have 2 tunnels there is during wartime, if anyone wanted to disable the entire Eastern Fleet of the Navy, they could just bomb those 2 bridges, and then the Navy boats, you know, the aircraft carriers, all the other warships, the submarines, that kind of stuff, they would not be able to get out into the ocean. So that's why they have 2 tunnels there. I imagine they were very expensive to build, and they're expanding the one between Norfolk and Hampton Roads to 4 lanes in each direction, and I've got some drone footage of that later on I'll show. But as we approached the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, I could see on AIS there were a ton of boats in there, and unbeknownst to me, This was right at the end of October. Yeah, the end of October that we were getting down to Hampton. And when I got into the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, there were 22 to 23 boats there already on the first night that I anchored. So we did find a spot to anchor. It's a big anchorage. We were a little closer to a catamaran than I would have liked, but the next day the boat next to us left, so I just moved over about 100 feet and everything was fine. But unbeknownst to me, you know, at that point I was down to about 1 gallon of diesel for the heater. So that first day I dinghied into the marina and I did fill up 2 jerry cans with diesel, so I picked up another 10 gallons. And I figured that would last us down to Atlantic Yacht Basin where we would refuel and rewater. And at this point, I was down to about 6 gallons of drinking water. Now, I'm very particular about my drinking water, so I have 6 6-gallon containers that I keep inside the boat underneath Neptune's bed. And that's all my drinking water. I filter it before I drink it. And I just don't trust the... You know, I've worked in food safety for too long. I don't trust the potable water epoxy coating that I have in my water tanks. It's not exactly to spec, that being there is a minimum tank size where that water is actually potable. Otherwise the VOCs could be too high, and my water tanks are too small to fit that spec. Now, this has been 4 years since I coated the tank, so I'm sure any VOCs that are in there are out. But I also don't trust, because I use so little water, I just don't trust the water system to be free from bacteria. I think it's perfectly fine to wash hands if there's some trace bacteria in there, to wash hands or to do dishes, you know, that kind of stuff. But I do brush my teeth and I have my own water jugs for that. I've just worked in food safety for too long it has made me paranoid, let's just put it that way. So we got to the anchorage. There were tons of boats there, and what I had learned when talking to the gentleman at the marina when I was refilling my diesel jerry cans was a lot of those boats were from Canada, and the insurance that a lot of the Canadians carry won't allow them to go south of Norfolk until November 1st. So that was why there was a log jam there. And most of them were actually traveling offshore. So I think I got there right around November 1st, and you know, the wind was picking up again, so we were stuck there for another 2 or 3 days. And after that, a large swath of them cleared out. I could see them all on AIS going offshore. So it did clear out. I think at the max we had 29 or 30 boats there, so there were a lot of people waiting to get on the road. And we did end up staying there for 2 or 3 days. One great thing about the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel anchorage is there is a public dinghy dock, and I was able to get the crew to shore a couple of times. Now this footage is always a little herky-jerky just because it's a handful to try and manage 3 dogs on retractable leashes, keep them all straight while they're jockeying around, and film with your phone. So usually at the end of one of these clips, I have a big mess with all the leads getting tangled up. So this stuff is always a little hard to film. And I have a life jacket mount for a GoPro. I just haven't been able to find it yet. It's in here somewhere. I have to dig it up. From what I understand, there is a grocery store that is close to this anchorage or to this dinghy dock, although I have never looked for it. You know, it's always so close to either the beginning or the end of our journey that we don't ever need supplies at this point. But if you do, there you go. The Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel is absolutely amazing. I just love all of this stuff. I love large engineering works. I love plants. I love, you know, I love refineries. I love industry. I just love all of it. It's amazing what humans can do. I think we're too hard on ourselves. I think a lot of the things that we can do should be applauded instead of always just humans are destructive and suck. That's just my opinion. I think we're great. But let's see, let me just look at some statistics here on the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. So originally, it's 3.5 miles long. It was originally built as a 2-lane let's see, I know this is thrilling. So the original two-lane structure opened in November 1st, 1957, so it's been there for a while. And it had an average of 2,000 vehicles per day and cost $44 million, which, that's really cheap. I am shocked that it's that cheap, which is equivalent to $375 million in 2024. That still seems really cheap to build a bridge tunnel underwater. But, you know, I'm sure that is going to go up as we go. Okay, so there were originally 2 lanes, then it was expanded to 4 lanes. Let's see. That began in 1976. They expanded it to 4 lanes. They don't say how much that cost. Let's see, there was a flood. There was a vehicle crash and a fire, which was not good. Okay, here's the expansion. So they're expanding it to 8 lanes, 4 in each direction. And let's see, so they started that in 2016. Or in 2016, the project was approved. And let's see how much this is going to cost. $3.3 billion. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. That's more like what I would expect it to cost. So it's going to be increased. Let's see if we got some vehicle statistics here. So in 1958, an average of 6,000 vehicles a day used the facility, where an average of 88,000 vehicles a day are using the crossing in 2008, with volumes exceeding 100,000 during the tourist season. That's a crazy number of vehicles to be going through a 4-lane tunnel. And the original design capacity for the 4-lane tunnel was 77,000. So that's why they're expanding it. I mean, that is crazy. 100,000 vehicles a day through there. That's crazy. I love this stuff. I could sit all day long and look at this. I mean, if you've seen those tunnel boring machines, oh my God, I've watched hour-long documentaries on those things. They're so fascinating. This stuff, I mean, it literally makes the hair on my arm stand up. It is just amazing. Oh, actually, here we go. So in 2000, on April 17th, 2024, the 430-foot-long boring machine broke through a concrete-lined pit on North Island, finishing the outline of the new one of the new westbound tunnels. So that's just amazing. I'm getting teary-eyed, and the hair on my arms is standing up. I know this is boring for everyone, but this stuff's phenomenal. One very cool thing I saw while we were anchored at the HRBT that I had never seen in motion before was an aircraft carrier. This thing was headed out to sea. It's the USS George Herbert Walker Bush. It was started construction in 2001, was finished in 2006. It cost $6.2 billion to build, which is, a little bit of scratch. And it's really cool. It has 2 nuclear reactors that power it, so it has unlimited range. It never has to be refueled. I guess the food for the stores for the crew would be your limiting, resource there. And the nuclear reactors only have to be refueled once every 20 to 25 years. It was launched in 2006, so this may not have been refueled yet since it went live, which is pretty mind-boggling. It's a very, very cool. And I'm not the hugest military person. I think we could use a lot less war in the world, and I'll just leave it at that. But it's unfortunately something we do have to deal with. So yeah, this was very cool to see. I could just fly out and fly back in. And it was interesting because when I got out there, I have flown directly over subs before, and I've seen warships, I have seen container ships, I've flown over top of them, but I'm like, I don't know that I want to fly too close to this thing. I know they have anti-drone technology. So I just came up, took a look at it, and then I went back to the boat, and I'm glad I did, because not literally 2 days later, there was a warship going out, and someone else was flying a drone, and they crossed the bow of the warship. Now, you wouldn't think a tiny little drone would even see it. I'm sure it would, I don't know, would something that small show up on their radar? I don't know. But they actually called on the radio and found who was flying the drone and chewed them out. So, so I'm glad I didn't fly over the aircraft carrier. I'm sure I would have gotten an earful if I did. So, yeah, just very neat. This thing is like 100 feet shorter than the Empire State Building, so it's literally like the Empire State Building on its side, moving through the water, which is just unbelievable. It's really neat to see. And that's all we have time for this week. I would like to give a massive shout out to my Patreon crew. Without your guys' support, I would not make these videos. I've contemplated quitting a few times, but thanks to your guys' support, I've decided to continue on. And my Patreon crew is Joan and Juddy Judnick, Val and Chris Alcorn, Eli Sackett, Sherry Erickson, Deb Shaw, Matthew Spotten, Kristen Ashton and Peter Allen, Natalie Linehan, and Tricia and Robert Johnson. Thank you guys so very much for your support. It really does mean the world to me. I wouldn't do this without you, so thank you very much. I do have one legacy patron member. Her name is Joan Linbo, and unfortunately she has passed on, but she lives on in our hearts forever. We really miss you, Joan. If you are interested in joining our Patreon crew, there is a link in the description down below where you can join Patreon. It's absolutely free. You don't have to pay for anything, and you'll get half of the bonus content for free. If you do want to join and throw us a couple of bucks, we won't turn you down. If you do like our videos, please do like, comment, and subscribe. That really helps us out with the algorithm and all this other garbage. I don't know how it works, but they say it helps, so hit that thumbs up button. Alrighty, I hope y'all are well, and we'll see you next week.